crescemos aqui, rodeado na favela, rodeado de problemas, rodeado de grandes coisas. Eu escolhi o meu do esporte, eu escolhi outra vida e graças a Deus estou aqui.
UFC 317 is just a few days away, and Ilia Topuria is training hard to claim his second belt in UFC. The former featherweight champion has shared a unique training routine ahead of his fight against Charles Oliveira. Ilia Topuria is highly confident of extending his winning streak as he aims to finish his career with no defeats in his record book. The Georgian is looking sharp in his latest training video that he shared on his social media account. Ilia Topuria is confident to defeat Charles Oliveira and is already thinking ahead to his first title defense. When asked who might be more deserving of a shot, Paddy Pimblett if he beats Justin Gaethje in October, or Arman Tsarukyan with another win, Topuria admitted he wasn't sure. He confirmed he'll be ready on June 28th and revealed that the original plan was to face Islam Makhachev after Oliveira. But if Oliveira loses, the UFC offers him a fight with Tsarukyan instead.
De lo que ha dicho Arman Tsarukyan de que podría ser el peleador de reemplazo de vuestro combate. Y además, como a ti te gusta visualizar en caso que ganes a Charles Oliveira, ¿quién se merecería más la oportunidad? ¿Paddy Pimblett si ganara en octubre, como dice él, contra Justin Gaethje? ¿O Arman Tsarukyan si hiciera otro combate?
No tengo ni idea, la verdad. Yo estaré ahí el 28 de junio. En un principio iba a ser Islam, después de Charles. Si se cayera Charles y me tienen que dar a Arman, la verdad que el resultado con todos sería el mismo. Me los bailo a todos.
On the other hand, Charles Oliveira is also not leaving any stones unturned for his title fight training. The former lightweight champion is putting all the hard work in the gym to get back his belt.
I don't know, bro. They're really nice. I'd love to train at a gym like this because I feel like there'd be a lot of room to do shit, you know what I'm saying? Joe Rogan says he wants people to fight in a football field. So there should be nothing blocking the fight. Like, you can't get taken down because you get stopped in the back.
Oh.
That's why he wants full field, so there's none of that.
Like no octagon.
Yeah, exactly.
But they can just run around the whole time.
Yeah, but that's like a no contest. You gotta fight.
Isso!
Charles Oliveira also remains confident that he will finish Ilia Topuria, recognizing the challenge but fully trusting in his abilities. He pointed to his past accomplishments as proof of his skill, saying he has nothing left to prove. Oliveira made it clear that he's focused on delivering a decisive win and is ready to stop Topuria.
What are your thoughts on Ilia Topuria and Ilia Topuria as a fighter? How do you feel about just the overall fight?
É uma grande luta. Ele é um grande lutador, mas eu não preciso falar mais nada pra ninguém. Tem o soco que eu já fiz, né, que vai vendo do cage. Essa outra chegou na oportunidade gigantesca. Vou nocautear esse cara. Essa é ela.
Who's gonna knock this guy out?
Charles is an experienced lightweight, but there is a lot of support for Ilia Topuria, who is just making his debut in this division. Heavyweight champ and legend John Jones is also backing Ilia Topuria. He acknowledges his impressive rise while emphasizing that only time will reveal how he handles success. Jones noted that winning a UFC title is a major accomplishment, but the real challenge lies in staying champion amid the pressure, fame, money, and distractions. He pointed out that few fighters manage to maintain that level long term. Still, Jones wished Topuria the best, highlighting his strong support system and expressing hope that he'll continue making the right decisions.
Wait, you said Ilia too, like, bro, do you think anybody has an answer for that guy?
I say time will tell. One thing that I know from experience, just being in the sport for so long, that it's difficult to win the belt. It's more difficult to live the lifestyle of a UFC champion and continue being a UFC champion. The fame and the press and the money and the girls and the alcohol, look, all of it, it doubles down on you. And very few people can handle it. So I actually do wish Elias all the support in the world. I know he has a great family, a great management team, and a great fight team and great friends.
He's a savage, bro.
I think he's
Islam's savage, bro.
I think he's gonna do the right things. But we'll see. It's always going to be a matter of time when it comes to people that have become champion. It's a very hard thing to maintain.
Similarly, Michael Chiesa, while a fan of Charles Oliveira, believes Ilia Topuria will win. He highlighted Topuria's body shots as a key weapon against Oliveira's upright stance and history of vulnerability to the body. Chiesa noted that despite Oliveira's elite submission skills, it will be tough to submit Topuria. Ultimately, he sees Topuria getting the job done.
Man, it's really hard to pick against Ilia Topuria. I'm a big Charles Oliveira fan, especially like I love, I'm always rooting for the guys from like the old guard. But if I'm going to get into the X's and O's, the way Topuria is able to touch the body is something that I think it's going to play a big role in this fight. Charles likes to stand very tall. He kind of leaves that body open a little bit. We've seen him go down from body shots in the past. And people forget, or actually people don't forget, people just might not know this. The Ilia Topuria's base, in the way he came up on the regional scene, you would not think that he's this devastating puncher. He really shined as a grappler, really shined with his wrestling. And while Charles Oliveira is the all-time submission lead, the greatest ground specialist we've ever seen in the UFC, I think that it's going to be very hard for Charles to submit Ilia Topuria, so I think Ilia gets the job done.
Former UFC champion Henry Cejudo questioned Charles Oliveira's ability to withstand Ilia Topuria's power, pointing out that Oliveira has been dropped in many of his fights. He praised Topuria's striking variety and precision, calling him the Matador, and recalled a fight where Topuria was hurt but came back to score a knockout. While acknowledging Oliveira's size and wrestling, Cejudo said he must make key adjustments or risk losing. He believes Topuria could become a two-division champion.
Charles Oliveira has been dropped by just about everybody that he's fought. What happens when you go up against a dude that's knocking people out, not TKOing people, knocking people out cold like Ilia Topuria? Ilia Topuria goes high-low. He can go to the body. He can go up top. We saw him one time at 155 pounds where he did get hurt, but the Matador in him, he came back and he ended up knocking him out. Charles Oliveira is the bigger fighter, taking down Michael Chandler, taking down Justin Gaethje with those beautiful double legs. Charles Oliveira is the guy that has to make those adjustments. If not, it's going to be the double champ. It's going to be Ilia Topuria securing himself as a two-division world champion.
Henry Cejudo also believes the stylistic matchup favors Ilia Topuria, citing his explosive power and sharp, well-mixed striking. He praised Topuria's ability to target both the body and head with precision and highlighted his track record of clean knockouts. Cejudo acknowledged that Topuria has been hurt before, specifically in the Jai Herbert fight at lightweight, but pointed to his resilience in coming back to win by knockout.
When I look at this fight, I think of this fight stylistically. I think, okay, the explosive power and the power in the hands, and it's crazy to say that, you have to go with more of Ilia Topuria, right? Ilia Topuria goes high-low. He can go to the body. He can go up top. He's been knocking people out cold. That means Max Holloway, two future Hall of Famers he knocked out. None of those guys went championship rounds. We saw him one time at 155 pounds where he did get hurt against Burns. Against Jai Herbert. But he got hurt, he got dropped, but the Matador in him, he came back and he ended up knocking him out.
Henry Cejudo further acknowledged Charles Oliveira's size and experience at lightweight, noting his victories over top contenders and effective double leg takedowns. However, he cautioned that Oliveira's tendency to engage at close range could be dangerous against a powerful inside striker like Ilia Topuria, making the matchup potentially unfavorable for the former champion.
Charles Oliveira is the bigger fighter. Charles Oliveira has fought the who's at 155 pounds. I mean, everything absolutely changes, man, with Charles Oliveira taking down Michael Chandler, with Charles Oliveira taking down Justin Gaethje with those beautiful double legs. But I will say this, when I think of this fight, I always think of the distance that Charles Oliveira brings, and particularly he likes to be in close. And the fact that he likes to be in close with an inside fighter,
However, after seeing a lot of support for Ilia, Daniel Cormier questioned why Charles Oliveira is being overlooked despite his proven track record, expressing surprise that many don't view him as a legitimate threat. Chael Sonnen agreed, referring to Oliveira as the Forsaken One and offering an example to support his point. Sonnen compared Ilia Topuria to Arman Tsarukyan, noting that Tsarukyan had a close call against Oliveira, nearly getting finished before being saved by the bell. He emphasized the athletic similarities between Oliveira and Tsarukyan, suggesting that Topuria is in for a serious challenge when he steps into the cage with Oliveira.
Why does it feel like Charles doesn't have a chance? Like, this is Charles Oliveira we're talking about. Why are people just writing him off?
Yeah, Charles really is kind of the forsaken one here. I mean, let me just give you a great example, which would be Tsarukyan. If I told you that Ilia was going to fight Tsarukyan, I think you'd go, wow, that's a close fight. Well, if I can play that game with you and just remind you that Tsarukyan fought Charles and it was, wow, a super close fight.
Yeah.
I mean, to the fact that they thought that, you know, when the fight was over, it was a split decision. When they weren't sure what was going to happen, Charles was choking him out, and it was kind of a saved by the bell moment. Charles and Tsarukyan are very interchangeable in terms of their athleticism. And I think if you think about it that way, you realize that Topuria really is stepping into some deep waters here.
Chael Sonnen also expressed shock upon learning that Ilia Topuria, in his lightweight debut, is favored to beat former champion Charles Oliveira. He said it didn't sit right that a fighter with Oliveira's resume, a former world champion with 3 title defenses and the most submission wins in UFC history, is being treated as a heavy underdog. Sonnen stressed that Oliveira's accomplishments warrant far more respect.
Minus 370 favorite Topuria is to beat Charles do Bronx Oliveira.
What?
Minus 370.
That is insane. That is not right.
To be the world champion that defended 3 times, has more submissions than anyone in UFC history, and he's a minus 370 favorite.
Furthermore, Michael Bisping analyzed the Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira matchup, describing Oliveira as a dangerous, aggressive fighter who relentlessly moves forward with strikes and submission attempts. He noted that while this will be Topuria's lightweight debut, his punching power, sharp boxing, relentless pressure, and Greco-Roman wrestling make him a serious threat. Bisping said he wouldn't be surprised if Topuria came out with the win.
Ilia versus Charles do Bronx Oliveira. We know Charles, he's a dangerous, aggressive son of a bitch. He's gonna walk forward, punch his knees, elbows, he'll lock on a submission. Ilia, this is his first fight at lightweight, and with the punching power of Ilia Topuria, the boxing that he has, the footwork that he has, and the Greco-Roman wrestling, it wouldn't surprise me if Ilia pulls it off.
Despite being the underdog in this fight, there is still a lot of support for Charles Oliveira as well. UFC lightweight Mateusz Gamrot believes Oliveira will knock out Ilia Topuria at UFC 317. While he acknowledged Topuria's power and the danger he poses if he lands clean, Gamrot feels Oliveira's size, experience, and striking will overwhelm the featherweight moving up. He emphasized that Oliveira is too big and well-rounded and ultimately sees the former champion finishing Topuria in their title fight.
Who do you think wins, Ilia or Charles?
Interesting matchup. The both guys has changed. Like if Ilia hit Charles Oliveira head, so he can knock him down for sure. But I think Oliveira is so big for him and for all-rounder fighter, and I think Oliveira will win this fight.
Mateusz Gamrot described Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria as a great, closely matched fight that could go either way, but ultimately leaned toward Oliveira. He acknowledged Topuria's knockout power, but emphasized Oliveira's size, experience, and grappling advantage. Gamrot pointed out that if the fight goes to the ground, it could be a major problem for Topuria. While he admitted Oliveira can be inconsistent at times, he believes Oliveira's ground game gives him a clear edge, and that could be the deciding factor in the fight.
You think Oliveira's gonna win? I haven't heard a lot of people say that.
I think so. He's big. It depends how his performance will be in the fight, because sometimes he looks bad, but sometimes he looks fantastic. So I think that in the ground he will be much better for Ilia. Especially like the gabarit is much different. Oliveira is big guy, Ilia is small guy. So if Oliveira catch him in the ground, I think this is gonna be big problem. But like I say, Ilia can knock him out for him also, you know. So this is like 50-50, but I think Oliveira will win.
Moreover, Myron Santos acknowledged that it's a tough fight for Charles Oliveira, but expressed his admiration, calling Oliveira an inspiration. He believes that if anyone can defy the odds, it's Charles, as he's done it before, and can do it again. For that reason, Santos is picking Oliveira to win.
Man, it's a hard fight for Charles, but I'm a big fan. He's inspiration for me. And like, if someone like can upset the odds, it's him. He's done it before and he can't do it again. So I'm gonna go with Charles.
Meanwhile, Brazilian featherweight John Silva has offered to help Charles Oliveira prepare for his UFC 317 bout against Ilia Topuria, boldly claiming he's the superior fighter. Silva pointed out technical flaws in Topuria's game, noting that he hides his back foot before throwing punches and often exposes his back after missing wild hooks, as seen in his fight with Bryce Mitchell. Gene Silva stated, "I just know I fight much better than Ilia. I know he walks and hides his back foot to throw the straighter cross. I know he has powerful hips, but when he throws and misses a heavy hook, it often causes him to turn so much that he gives up his back." We saw that in the Bryce Mitchell fight. How many times did he give up his back? Let's be honest here. I'm better than you. That's why I haven't done the same. I did better than him. Josh Thompson also shared his thoughts about this fight and said Ilia Topuria faces a tough test moving up to fight Charles Oliveira, highlighting Oliveira's height, length, and elite submission skills. While many expect Topuria to score a knockout, Thompson pointed out Oliveira's resilience, noting that he often gets hurt but recovers and finds a way to win, much like Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, it's a tough fight to do it against. You're going up in weight and you're fighting a former champion, Charles Oliveira, who is tall, long, and lanky and extremely good on the ground. One of the best, if not the best, you know, in the UFC in terms of submissions. So this is, and it's so funny because when the fight was announced, you know, I'd seen everyone say, man, Ilia's going to knock him out, But as now, in the last probably 3 or 4 days, I've seen a ton of people kind of not retracting what they said, but just basically saying, yeah, you know, Charles, though, I've seen him, he gets dropped or gets wobbled in every fight, and then he comes back and wins. And I'm like, yeah, he has that Eddie Alvarez kind of effect, where he gets hurt, he gets stunned, and then he comes back and submits you, or he comes back and he wins 3 or 4 rounds. You know, whatever it is.
Meanwhile, Renato Moicano believes the Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria matchup is tougher than it appears. While many expect Topuria to dominate, Moicano emphasized that Oliveira is extremely tough and shouldn't be counted out. He acknowledged Topuria's strength at featherweight, but after recently speaking with Oliveira on a podcast, Moicano said he came away impressed and ultimately chose to support him, partly out of admiration and partly because of their shared Brazilian roots.
You're fighting on the Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria card. Charles is a big underdog. How do you see that fight going?
Man, that's a tougher matchup that a lot of people think. They think Topuria gonna run through Charles. You never count Charles Oliveira out. I think he's very tough. But Topuria is good, you know? He's 145. It's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I don't have an opinion on that. I was leaning more to Topuria, but today I just had a podcast with Charles on my Brazilian channel. It's just very hard to not like the guy. That makes harder, you know, to pick against him. So I'm going with Charles just because he's Brazilian.
Flyweight fighter Ode Osborne called the Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira matchup intriguing, giving Oliveira the advantage on the ground but favoring Topuria in the striking department. He warned against underestimating Oliveira's stand-up, pointing out that he's dropped elite fighters like Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler. However, Osborne believes Topuria has the stronger chin and sees the fight potentially being decided by whether Oliveira can survive one of Topuria's power shots.
So Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira, that one is definitely an interesting matchup because obviously Charles, in my opinion, has the advantage on the ground. But, you know, stand-up wise, I'm gonna have to go with Ilia only because he's been such a GOAT on the stand-up era. Charles has, you know, you can't count him out as well. You know, you've seen him drop Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, some of the greatest fighters ever with his stand-up. So his stand-up isn't counted out. I'm just saying, I think you know, maybe Charles has less of a chin, whereas Ilia can afford to take one or two, but can Charles take one of Ilia's? That is going to be the deciding factor of the fight.
Ode Osborne believes Ilia Topuria's punching power gives him the edge over Charles Oliveira, citing Oliveira's unpredictable chin as a concern. He sees the fight as a tough challenge for Oliveira and said he'd prefer to see Oliveira face Paddy Pimblett instead. Still, Osborne is excited about the matchup and looks forward to breaking it down afterward.
I'm gonna go ahead and swing Ilia's way on this one, only because I said, you know, he's got that one-hitter quitter, and Charles's chin sometimes can go either way. A lot of his fights is Charles is losing and then he wins. You know, I love Charles, man. He's one of my favorite fighters. I would love for him to get the W. It's a tall order for Charles. It really is. So I'm just, you know, I have to give you my 100% honest truth. Love Charles, but this is a tall order, man. I almost don't want him to fight Ilia. I'd rather him fight Paddy Pimblett, if I'm being honest.
With just 17 days remaining until UFC 317, the hype surrounding Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira continues to build. Both fighters are sharpening their weapons. Topuria is confident and already thinking about title defenses, while Oliveira is determined to reclaim his belt and silence the doubters. The MMA world is also split on how this clash will unfold, but one thing is certain: come June 28th, fans are in for an electrifying showdown between two elite warriors.